Hello, how's everyone doing today? We're here with special guest Macey Tomlin. Macey Tomlin is a liberty activist. She's also Adam Kokesh's fiance, a yoga instructor, and a
Not a
shroom.
yoga instructor.
Yoga something. Sorry,
I'm a
and
practitioner, not a.
a practitioner. Sorry, and a psychedelic extraordinaire expert.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So let me just talk, I guess, for a few minutes before we actually do this show. I think it's important to mention, and this is a sort of an unusual show, because usually I do libertarian shows, and this is not a libertarian show, because libertarianism is about the non-aggression principle and property rights, and that's it. And the libertarian position on narcotics, prostitution, homosexuality, polyamory, any controversial subject is just, it should be legal. And libertarianism is not pro or con drug use. It's simply, it should be allowable. So any views that Macey and I might have that advocate for certain drugs is views that we have not because we're libertarians, but because we have views beyond, being libertarian. So I guess with that out of the way, welcome to the program. The first time we met was actually on this Pork Fest. I think it was your first Pork Fest also, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was the best experience of my life.
Me too, and we'll find out why soon. Anyway, so I asked Macey this question, and she gave what I thought was you gave what I thought was the best response, and I still is. And I asked many people, how do you become an anarchist? And you said shrooms, lots and lots of shrooms. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, the first time I ever did psychedelics, it was actually, I'm in Seattle now, and the first time I took them, I took a random trip to Seattle, and it was by far the most terrifying experience of my life. But I was a Hooters girl, and I was pretty liberal, not very political, but that's what I thought I was standing behind at that point. And it ended up being a very terrifying experience. And then shortly after that, I never thought I would take mushrooms again, which I think a lot of people end up having that experience and never trying them again. But I watched Zeitgeist about 4 months later. And then, so I woke up to the truth of the nature of our government. And then at this point, somehow, one of a very good friend of mine gave me a huge bag. I'm not joking. It was absolutely ginormous. And I had asked for it. I had done it like once right after, and it was an amazing experience. And then I got this huge bag, and I experimented with psychedelics for 90 days, almost every day. I would take a couple breaks so my tolerance would level out again and I could trip again. But from that, I gained awareness. I stopped focusing so much on the government and what they were doing, and I kind of connected to myself with nature, learned about sacred geometry and fractals and things that we normally can't see with our daily lives. We miss it. So I learned a lot about the world and myself, and I gained a lot of self-acceptance. I went through a really pretty abusive childhood. And it helped me get past that and see where it was actually positive for me to go through those experiences. And I have to give it credit for helping me relieve my anxiety and my depression.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. So when I first heard you say what made you an anarchist was lots and lots of shrooms, I immediately thought to myself, I'm an Austrian economist, but I also believe in empiricism. And so I want to check this theory for myself. And so I took some, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, for me, it felt, I was sort of, I was on all sorts of anxiety medications. There's an anxiety medication you could think of. Well, I was probably on it. And they never really worked for me. And not only did they not work for me, they made me more anxious, because I would say, why isn't this working? So that was the added anxiety because of the medication. And I took some shrooms, and I'm not going to say it removed my anxiety, but it removed it while on it, certainly, and it made me feel more confident. So I think, I think at least for people who have anxiety or maybe are a bit uncomfortable in social situations, I think it's a good relaxant.
Yep, absolutely. They're actually scientifically, they're doing scientific studies right now on how psychedelics cure anxiety, even addictions with nicotine and depression. And about, I think it said, and don't quote me on this, but I think about 80% of the people who did the experiment 6 months later, they were still happier, and they had their friends and family concur that that was true, that they literally had a lighter perception on life after they had taken psychedelics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. And do you know any of the, what are the side effects, for people who are wondering, do you know?
Well, okay, for psilocybin, which is my personal favorite, some people are more sensitive to the effects. Some people get nauseous. The first time I took them, I got nauseous, but I did not eat. And you're supposed to eat, before you take any kind of drug. And I would hope that you would put something on your stomach. But some people get, a little bit of gut rot. Mentally, I mean, the effects of psilocybin is you start to hallucinate. Sometimes it takes longer for certain individuals. For me, it takes up to about 40 minutes for me to start hallucinating. And depending on how much you'll take, that's how much you'll start to hallucinate. You can experience anxiety on it. And how I explain it is, it's not the psilocybin that is making you anxious. It's actually your mind. And your mind is trying to tell you that there is something not in balance with your personal needs that you might be doing in life. And I mean, I think that psilocybin really does connect you to digging in deeper to see what's wrong and try to fix that. And I think that's where the anxiety comes from. Unfortunately, I don't think that many people realize this and let the anxiety take over. And that results in a bad trip. Acid is, I like acid. I thought that it was more controllable at a point, but now I've gone back to liking shrooms more, because the last time I took acid, I realized that it is a chemical, and I do have really bad jaw clenching with acid. I don't get that on mushrooms at all. And you overall feel a chemical, taking over you with acid. I do prefer the hallucinations of acid better than I do of shrooms. They seem to be a little bit more detailed, I guess. And of course, acid lasts about 12 hours, sometimes longer. Shrooms, depending on how much you take, usually only lasts from up to 2 hours to 6 hours. And then with DMT, you feel very calm afterwards. There's actually not, there really aren't any effects, long-term side effects that can hurt you with DMT or mushrooms. Acid, if you take it for a long enough period, it can get trapped in your spinal cord, and when you're older, you can trip, just surprisingly. So
yeah, that sounds like
that's all I know about the side effects. I mean, I've looked into the side effects, and like I said, for mushrooms and DMT, you really can't overdose on them. You have to take a lot. It's like pounds and pounds of mushrooms before you overdose. With acid, though, you absolutely can. And sometimes if you take too much, you can definitely hurt yourself that way. So definitely do your research. I would definitely recommend before you try any of them. But mushrooms and DMT are probably the safest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know experience with DMT yet, but
you will someday. It'll come into your life
one day. But my view. I mean, personally, I've only had of the psychedelics, shrooms and acid, and I can tell you that well, first of all, I think all drugs once you're prescribed, have possible negative side effects. I don't think there's anything on earth that, besides for maybe water, and even in that you can drown, that has, devoid of side effects. You have a lot of sugar, you can get diabetes. A lot of fat, you can get a lot of heart attack. You ever see these commercials with prescription medication, and it says, all the possible side effects, and some of them are very bad, like suicide, coma, and I was prescribed because drugs in my life for anxiety, for depression, for concentration, and when I was prescribed these drugs, they all had side effects, and I guess because when I was younger, my parents wanted me to take them. They felt that the benefits of using these things outweigh the side effects, and I think it's up for each individual to do the research and to say, do the benefits of taking these things outweigh the effects? I don't know if you've ever read the excellent article by Lysander Spooner, "Vices Are Not Crimes," and one of the points that he makes in the article is that by not allowing a person to, real knowledge comes about not through reading a book, but through experience. And if you are deprived of being able to learn on your own, good and bad, then you are really deprived of a part of your knowledge. Now, I'm not saying that people should run into traffic to test the theory or purposely catch hot fire, but I think it's beneficial, even if you don't enjoy certain things, to experiment and see for yourself, and learn from your mistakes and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with MDMA, I'm not sure if you know this, but with all the medications that are prescribed to people, Prozac, antidepressants, especially for veterans, they come back and they have post-traumatic stress. MDMA was originally created in the 80s as a couples therapy drug. And then it got into the rave scene. And of course, the government was like, well, no, people are having fun with this, so we need to make it illegal. When actually that isn't the case at all. That's not the reason why it's illegal. 2 hits of Molly for 2 sessions with a trained psychologist can literally cure post-traumatic stress, all its symptoms, in 2 sessions. And it costs less. If it was legal, it would cost less to make them than it would be to ship them out, to a person who has these problems. You really do need to do your research, but with the big pharmaceutical companies and all these horrible side effects, what is it? 2 hits of Molly compared to a lifetime of Prozac? Who is that really benefiting? And that's where I'm in a huge disagreement with antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills. I see a lot of people get hooked on them for life. And really what I've found is that I was able to cure, and I've had horrible anxiety and depression. And the one thing that I can say has completely cured me of that is my experience with psychedelics.
Yeah. I think, I'll have to do the research myself, but I guess I believe you. But I think that, the problem is that, first of all, the war on drugs is insane. Yeah. And forget the moral aspect. You own your body. You should be able to put whatever you want in your body. People have a feeling that all illegal drugs, or pretty much all illegal drugs besides pot, are the same. I would never, ever put meth in my body. I would never put heroin in my body. I would never put cocaine in my body. These things are addicting, and these things are harmful. And I don't recommend that anyone use them. You should be free to if you want. It's your body. But I think to compare, meth or heroin with, acid or shrooms is ridiculous. You can do the research yourself. Alcohol is far worse than these drugs. Cigarettes are far worse from these drugs. More people have, and what you were talking about, prescription medication, the biggest fatalities of drugs is overdosing on prescription medication. More people died from that than anything else. and these drugs are legal. So the war on drugs is not about logic. It's not about common sense. It's just about economic interest or soothing the interest of the ignorant masses.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a racket. Yeah. But it's falling apart. And we're seeing it with like the legalization of marijuana. Adam always says it's like watching like a glacier, and it's about to fall. You know, one of those big pieces of rock is about to fall off, and we're just kind of watching it chip away. And there's really nothing, you know, that's going to stop it at this point. You cannot smoke pot and not realize that the government isn't full of, or is completely full of shit. You know. And people are starting to realize it. The reason why acid is so illegal, and I mean, I just learned this, but if you're carrying hits of acid, it can be literally like a felony of manslaughter, just for a couple hits of acid. And the reason why is that if people were really open to what it actually does, which shows you, you know, a different way of reality, of things that, you know, we don't see in everyday life, you know, it really does open you up to see that everything is right in the universe. And there you cannot be controlled anymore by fear. And that's what they're scared of. And that's why psychedelics especially are so illegal. They're more illegal than any other drug, especially acid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so as I said earlier, I'm an empiricist. And when I took the shrooms for the first time, because I was curious, you know, how does taking shrooms turn you into an anarchist? I'm not really sure what that meant. And when I took them, I got very mad. Well, I'm mad at the state already. I hate the government. But I got more mad because I'm like, you know, these feel very good. These make me less anxious. And I'm not violent. You know, as I said to someone who was on them, you know, I said to a guy who's on them, you know, if you shaved your, you know, facial hair, I could kiss you. That's how happy I feel on these shrooms. And so, you know, they, I think, well, I mean, I really don't know why they're illegal. I mean, I don't know if it's simply because they make you happy that they're illegal. I think it's more just...
you cannot control happy people. You cannot control happy people. So that's definitely a reason why they keep them so illegal.
Can you not control... Sorry, what?
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can't I don't even know if you can't control happy people. There are happy people I know who are easily manipulated. So, and I think it's hard to control me. I'm not a very happy guy, so I don't know if I.
Okay, I'm wrong. I have nothing to back me up.
Anyway, I was interrupting. What were you saying earlier?
Oh, I'm actually not sure. Let's move on.
All right, sure. So I think you said you can overdose on acid. I don't know if that's technically correct. I mean, obviously you should
not overdose, but you can definitely. I actually knew somebody who don't ever carry like hits of acid in your pocket without a bag, because if it rains, you're fucked pretty much. And this is exactly what happened to this guy. He got pushed into a pool, and he was he was going to school to be a chemist, and he's gone, you know. And that's where I'm saying, like, you can overdose. It's very rare. I don't think that a lot of people who carry, you know, a ton of acid in their pockets jump into a pool or anything, but anything like that. It takes a lot more from mushrooms to overdose than it does with acid. You know?
How much did he have?
One hit of acid is very, for the most part.
How much did he have? Do you know? That he went crazy?
I don't know. He had a ton on him. I think he sold them. So he had a lot. He had like a strip in his pocket and was at a party from my hometown, actually. So, you know, he still walks around my hometown, kind of screwy. So
yeah. I saw a YouTube video recently, and this is just mean, of this guy who made a YouTube video while he was on acid. And he said he was at a party, and these people thought it would be funny to put 10 hits of LSD in his Coke. So he drank it, and
What happened?
well, in the video, you did see a wall in the background looked like it was punched in. So I don't know what in the long term. I mean, 10 LSD hits is a ton. I think to take more than 2 or 3 is crazy at a time.
Well, that's kind of vindictive that they would put, something, that I don't believe in roofing anyone, with any, or drugging anyone in general with anything. I think that's extremely rude and can lead to a very terrifying experience for the person who's being drugged too. So I definitely don't think that is right. And I would hope that anyone in their right mind would consider, looking up the information and researching it before they took 10 hits of acid. Right. So,
I mean, he took it up unknowingly, but I agree. I think you should do, research when you take anything. And of course, you never know. I mean, obviously, all of us, buy stuff and eat food, and we don't know what's in all of it. So, we sort of have to trust that it's safe.
There is a synthetic acid that I just found out, or a synthetic form of acid, and it's called C1 or 25B, and there's a C1 something. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what it's called, but I also want to, just note that if you ever do find, somebody who has a synthetic form of any drug, I would definitely steer clear of that. That can really harm you. It can lead for a very good time, so I'm told, but it can really have bad after effects, including in your mental state. So I definitely just want to put a note on that. Like, if you ever hear of any synthetic drugs, make sure you really do your research. I'm not saying don't try them if you want to, but I'm saying that the effects, the long-term health effects of those are much, much worse than the molecules found in acid, real acid or natural drugs such as shrooms and DMT. So,
yeah, probably also get a drug testing kit. I've recommended. Probably a good idea. You can.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have one, but probably it's a good idea if you can. So I think one of the things that you said is that you wanted to speak about this topic at the next Liberty event. What maybe talk a little more about that. What did you sort of want to say about that?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be at Anarcho-Poco. I'm going to be giving a speech on the therapeutic properties of psychedelics. So I'm putting my research in together right now. I'm going to be talking about the different strains of psilocybin. There's about 144 mushrooms that contain psilocybin, different types that give you different effects, different trips, how you can cultivate them. I'm really going to try to delve into everything I can talk about when it pertaining to psychedelics. I'm going to do a section on mushrooms and acid and DMT. See, I haven't tried ayahuasca. I wish I did have that experience so I could talk about that as well. But I've heard it's just a really long DMT trip. But I will bring that up as well, along with DMT. I'll talk about, the effects that it can have, the negative side effects for all of them. I'm going to go into how you are in constant possession of DMT, and how spiritually exhilarating these drugs can be if you responsibly take them, and do it in moderation.
Mm-hmm. So you want to maybe give a little sample of what you're going to say, maybe the negative effects, or how DMT is in your brain, or.
Well, okay, so DMT specifically, I really love DMT. It's actually, it's just got a special place in my heart or my brain. But DMT is actually released in your brain. You're in constant possession of it. It's released in your brain. Well, it's actually released 49 days after conception. And then when you're born, it's released in high states of meditation. It's released throughout your life. And then at death, it's released. And so a lot of people compare it to the gateway to whatever comes afterwards, or even if that's just it. So you're in constant possession of it. And when I took DMT, I've taken DMT quite a few times, and it is almost like somebody is standing in front of me and saying, here is the knowledge. This is all you need to know. Like, this is it. And all you can do is laugh, and you're seeing, these shapes. It's the same shapes that you see with, it's the same type of hallucinations you see with shrooms, except you see them more when you close your eyes too. And I always try to listen to theta beats or meditative music while doing this. You really, really focus into each little ping in the notes, and it's just amazing. You feel so good afterwards. And even I've had bad trips with DMT. Or anxious trips, I should call them. But it is, it's almost like I'm looking down at my ego, and I'm seeing all the things that are getting in the way of my life, all these egotistical things. So really, it's not like I have an anxiety attack on it. It's where the thing, my brain try to see what is in the way of my life that keeps me from living as happily as I can. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me look at it a lot deeper.
You mentioned some negative effects of these drugs. Why don't you talk about that for a little?
All right. So the first the main negative effect is that you're going to have an anxiety attack. You can. If you look at it in a different sense and see that you don't have to have that anxiety attack, that it's there to show you that something is not in harmony with your needs, you can really, really save yourself from the negative anxiety. I recommend psychedelics to anybody who is not awake to the nature of our government. I think that once you free your mind in that sense, it can definitely help. Negative side effects for DMT, there really are none, and same with psilocybin. There really are no negative side effects after you take them. The only thing that you might have is a little bit of gut rot, just a little bit of an upset stomach, but you normally don't throw up. Acid, I would say, is probably the most, the one that you can have the most negative side effects, especially when it comes to it building in your spinal cord. So years later, acid, which I'll probably won't be one of these people, you kind of have a trip. Just randomly, which honestly I wouldn't mind, but that can be a negative side effect, and it could be bad if you're driving or something like that. You can also, have more mental problems with acid, depending on the type that you take. There are different forms that you and I actually were talking about a little bit before. There's LSD and LSA, and then you had mentioned another one. But so all of those will have different, I'm assuming all of those different chemicals would have different side effects. But really, ayahuasca as well, you have a tendency to throw up if you have some things that candida especially will make you throw up during an ayahuasca trip. But you don't die, you cannot overdose on DMT unless you take a lot. Same with mushrooms, you really cannot overdose. It's like, I'm not kidding, I read 37 pounds of mushrooms you would have to take in order to overdose. It would be like a caffeine overdose. You have to drink a lot of caffeine to do so. I'm not saying do this, like, don't try to take as many as you possibly can. But it's just a lot before you overdose. In fact, psychedelics seem to have the least amount of negative side effects afterwards.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also just to point out, and I'll just say based on the research that I've done, well, first of all, acid leaves your system in about a week. I remember the first time I had acid, the guy who was one of the guys in this event said to me, acid never leaves your system. But I was at this event, and a lot of them, I was sort of curious. I don't know if that sounded true to me. Acid stays within your spinal cord forever and never leaves you. So I sort of, did my own research and the magic of Google, and it leaves your system within about a week. And the effects of having a tripping in the future are very rare. All the people who should not take it, they say if you have, that there is a risk or a greater risk if you have had a mental illness in the past, that could make it stronger. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. Schizophrenia, especially.
Right. So if you have a history of mental illness, and no, being a statist doesn't count, then
it does count. That's a mental illness.
It counts as a mental illness, perhaps, but not in this context. It
totally is.
If you're a statist, the effects are going to be worse for you. But
exactly.
Yeah, and yeah. So let's talk about some of the positive effects of these things.
So I think I've mentioned a little bit before that any kind of psychedelic can be a huge help in relieving anxiety and depression. It can help with addictions such as nicotine, alcoholism. There are trained psychologists who also work with LSD and mushrooms who work through issues with their patients, who are on them, and the majority of them come out feeling a lot better. You can feel extremely positive. A lot of people have a better outlook on life after they've done it, and most will say that it was their single most spiritual experience of their lives. With DMT, I feel like it's the same thing. It's a state of meditation, so ultimately when you meditate, you're gonna feel a lot more relaxed. I mean, I'm sure there are more. I can't really think of them right now. I feel like I had another one too, and I can't remember what it is.
Well, sorry, what?
It definitely outweighs the negative side effects. That's for sure.
I would agree. I told someone, I thought of, because when you take, these drugs, you feel like walking around a lot or dancing if you're on shrooms. And if you're on acid, you feel like you want to walk a lot. I know I don't really appreciate nature that much, but when I was on acid, it made me appreciate nature a lot, looking at the beautiful clouds and the trees. And I remember one day when I was on acid, I walked 6 miles, and I was not hungry, which is probably why you should eat beforehand. So I said to my friend, I think I'm starting a diet book where basically the diet is you take psychedelics, and then it makes you not hungry and want to walk a lot.
Yep.
So you can lose weight.
I did yoga. I did yoga on acid, and I was able to balance from your body. So you are able, you're not really focused on that egotistical balancing of something for yoga. Like, you just kind of do it. I was able to do crazy handstands and crow. So yeah, you can do a lot of things on psychedelics. Your body, you're kind of not attached to your body. So like you said, you weren't hungry. You walk 6 miles. You can dance a lot. You have a lot more energy. That you're just not thinking about your body. So you still have to, try to take care of yourself when you're on them. Drink a lot of water still. That will help whatever dry mouth you start to get if you're taking acid. Also, the receptors in your brain, I did not mention this, but the receptors in your brain, when you're on a psychedelic, they make newer connections. With the your entire brain is linked together pretty much and connecting. So it's not like just 10%, like you're using obviously a little bit more at that point, but it is connecting to receptors that they normally don't connect with. So that's what, another thing, you get synesthesia. That's a really positive thing. I've tasted colors, or I've heard colors, and I've seen sounds. So there are certain, psychedelics that can take senses and mold them together and connect them. And that's, the receptors that are being, stimulated in your brain that normally aren't. So that's a really cool effect.
Yeah. Also, I think it's also important to be in the right environment. I think the first time you take these things, you should probably have a spotter or someone with you. Because
I was your trip sitter for a little bit.
Huh?
Your trip buddy, I should say.
Yes, you were. You were my trip buddy. So thank you for that. Yeah. It's also fun. I mean, I think it's a social thing, so it's probably fun to do it with people. I think, being alone in your room, tripping, doesn't sound like that fun.
It's not true. I did 90 days almost tripping by myself.
Wow.
And it was an amazing experience. I actually prefer to trip by myself. But I like my own company. I'm good company. So, especially when I'm on mushrooms.
Why do you prefer tripping by yourself?
I'm an introvert, and I think that introverts just enjoy the company of themselves. My thoughts kind of flow better when I'm by myself, and even when I'm not on anything, that's just how I am. So I've always, before I decided to marry Adam Kokesh, I married myself for a really long time. So I've always just been in good company of myself. And I have a bird. I have a macaw who is one of those big red birds you see in the zoo. And I would trip with her, and I would move her feathers, and she's like blue all the way down, and I would cry. I would have her, but yeah, I like to trip alone. It's a good feeling. You have a lot of thoughts that you normally wouldn't have when somebody else is around, because you're sharing emotions. But when it's just you, you really get to know yourself.
All right, so maybe I'll do it alone once.
You should, yeah.
I should. All right.
With music.
With music, yeah, right. 90 days in a row sounds like a lot. I mean, were you productive during those 90 days?
Yeah, actually I was. And in fact, it gets to the point where you're just aware. Like, it was like my personal antidepressant. Like, you don't trip eventually. I mean, your tolerance goes, you get a pretty high tolerance after, I would say 3 days. I mean, even when I was at Porkfest, I had tripped for 5 days in a row. And the first day was obviously very strong. The second day was still strong, but I put it out where I took some in the morning. I spread it out. So I took some in the morning, I took some in the afternoon, took some in the evening, and then I took some at night. By the nighttime, you're tripping, and it's a good trip, but you've been happy all day. So pretty much, I did them for 90 days, and I have no negative side effects. The only thing that it did was make me more aware and happier. So, just worked through my issues. And no, eventually people don't even know. And that's the really cool thing. People just don't know.
No, I agree. I mean, it certainly helped me remove anxiety, appreciate the beauty of nature, appreciate life, appreciate life more. And no, I think it's also fun to be around people who do it. When I met you at Porkfest, I thought you were one of the funnest to be around there, and maybe that's why. Who knows? But so it's good, and I sort of like telling people to try it. I guess you could call me a drug pusher. I mean, if I had children, I would want to do it with them as a bonding moment.
I know. I think that too. Yeah. Well, every single time I do mushrooms, I really literally radiate love. That's how I feel. I literally feel like I'm just this big ball of love at this point. And I've evolved so much that I can be around people and it doesn't affect me or my anxiety or anything like that, which a lot of people have a problem with, going out into public with it. But eventually you get over that and it becomes the best experience ever. And you're able to share it with other people. And people are really attracted to you. They're really drawn to you because you're radiating that light.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're going through a huge psychedelic revival right now. And I think more and more people are, a great experience. And I think that it's bringing us closer to where humanity is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I remember there was a guy who had a bad trip. I was with he spent the night in his car, and it was the first time he ever had, and it was actually real LSD, and apparently it was very powerful stuff. And after it, he said to me he questioned his own existence, and stuff like that. So I guess if you're alone or feel alone, I guess maybe it can improve or make you not improve, maybe think about things differently. I mean, for me, like I would want to do it more if like I'm in a social situation and I feel like a little uncomfortable being social, and this is sort of just a good way to be more confident, sort of like a confidence booster.
Yep.
And
Well, for the people who have had bad trips, I mean, the first time that I took mushrooms, I took about 3 times as much as I should have, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And I'm not kidding when I say I was seeing flowers in the sky, and it turned bad, and I was in a very unfamiliar place. I was in downtown Seattle. We couldn't find the train, and I barfed in a grocery store, ironically called Ralph's grocery store, across the street from the Space Needle. I mean, it was really, really terrifying. I mean, I'm sure I had the cops called on me. So people who have bad trips, the only thing I can say is do your research. After that moment, I've never been irresponsible with drugs. I've always taken, if I'm doing acid, I might take a hit, like a full hit, if I'm like at a concert. But for the most part, I'll start out with half a hit, see how it feels, and then take the other half, because I want to be comfortable with it. And that's why I'm so comfortable with psychedelics, I think, is because I take my time. I don't want to just, up and start tripping, especially if I'm not in a comfortable position. So I always just start with a little bit, get used to it, and then I'll take the rest. And it's a great time then.
No, I agree. And I think you also learn from bad experiences. So, I don't know if I should mention it even in the video, but the second time I had shrooms, I was a bit dumb, and I had like an edible and a half of pot, 2 shots of moonshine and shrooms, and I was tripping balls. I mean, the moonshine. I was tripping balls. This was during the summer in Arizona, and I was seeing snow. So you were seeing flowers, I was seeing snow. I saw all 4 seasons, and I felt I was like sinking into the ground. And for the first hour of it, I was sort of feeling paranoid, and I went up to people and I said, "This is not going to last forever, is it?"
Oh.
And,
no, it's not going to last forever.
And it was not the first time I've been on shrooms, so I should know it's not. But maybe the moonshine and the pot, and I've learned my mistakes. So as I tell children, do drugs, but do them separately. And so you have to be responsible. And I think it was good that I had that experience, because it allowed me in the future, maybe let's say I would have mixed really bad stuff together. Now I know in the future, don't mix drugs.
Well, I mean, DMT and weed, you can. Like, that's a good one. Moonshine might have not been the best idea, but I drink sometimes when I'm on mushrooms. It gives you a little bit of a bubbly feeling, but man, moonshine, you were taking a risk there. You were taking a risk.
Like what type of risk?
This year? Was this summer?
Yeah, this summer. What risk do you think I was taking? I mean, for the first hour of it, I was like sitting down in my head. People, I think, thought I was like incapacitated or something. But
you did look like that the first time you took them too. You kind of went into your own little world for a little bit. You remember laughing at that watch? Like, our friend had that watch, and it was just like a new high-tech watch, and Daniel here just starts geeking out over it. We were laughing so hard at you. You were so funny. But that's what you do too. Okay, that's another positive effect of any kind of psychedelic. You just laugh. You just giggle. And you don't even, it's just, life is funny. And you giggle way harder than you normally do. It's great.
Yes, it is. You do laugh a lot. I remember the second time I was on it, because of all the stuff that I mixed. And also talking about losing weight, because the second time I was on it, maybe because of the mix, my body was moving like this for like 6 hours. For like 6 hours. For like 6 hours. Some people nicknamed me hula hips. And because I was like a hula hoop. And
laugh at that? I feel like you should have giggled so hard if they called you that to your face.
I was laughing a lot. I was laughing and moving around. But what real risk do you think that I risked by being on it?
Oh, just that sometimes a negative side effect with moods. I what I've experienced, mood swings and things, and then adding weed in the mix of that. If I drink and smoke, it can be fun, but sometimes it can be too much, and I get dizzy. And then like adding mushrooms on top of that, I don't know. And you were also in an unfamiliar place, correct?
I mean, I was at a Liberty event. I'm not going to mention the name to protect the innocent, but
oh, that's fine.
but I was at a Liberty event. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
yeah. Always start with one drug and then maybe add the other ones after you.
It was a mistake to mix them, and you don't really appreciate them if you mix them. You don't appreciate the pot. You don't appreciate the shroom I felt. And it also lasted a really long time because I started at like 5, and at midnight people were going to bed, so they started treating me like a dog, like get in your tent at but I was still tripping by midnight. And I remember sitting in my tent and my hand went like this, just like back and forth for like half an hour, like I couldn't even control it. So don't do drugs responsibly, because I felt like, oh my God, it's like this is like an evil hand that's moving. I can't even control my movement. I did not feel like a self-owner at that point.
It's like that movie Woodstock with Dimitri Martin, and he takes acid and he goes, I have no arms. I can't feel my arms. That's what it reminded me of. That was before I took acid, and it kind of scared me. Like, oh shit, I'm not going to think I have arms. But that's not what it's like. Also, you know, it's funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, pictures and things, are like, this is what happens when you're on acid, and it's like a cartoon. And I have never had that happen where my vision turns into cartoony characters. I've only seen fractals and geometry and nature, So I also want to put that out there, that the likelihood of you having a cartoonish experience is very rare. Like, I don't know why people put that.
When I was on acid, we were by the fire, burning wood, and one of the wood pieces looked like it was a clown crying. So
I've had that happen. Yes. I've had like faces come out, and I'd be like, what is that?
Yeah.
We actually, I tripped in Arches, Utah, and we were next to a Japanese concentration camp. And, I've been very experienced with psychedelics at this point. But what got to me was, we were having a lot of fun. And I looked out towards that concentration camp, and I was like, people suffered here. I should not be having fun. And it took me about 30 minutes to get me out of that low state of mind, and convince myself that I was fine. But I think I'm at the point now where I'm so evolved that I can pick myself up out of any like anxiety attack that I feel coming on. Like I have trained my mind that well on psychedelics that I can reverse that and not have an anxiety attack. So, I mean, you have the power to change it. If you're going to do them, you don't have to freak out. All you have to do is have power over your mind and change it up. If it's something that you're focusing on that you really don't need to be focusing on, just switch to something else and start thinking about something else. I mean, so you really do have the power.
If you're in the middle of having a bad trip, what would you recommend people to do? Just, think happy thoughts, or
walk around and look at the sky, look at the shapes, ground yourself back to the earth. The earth will always take care of you. See, the mushroom, any psychedelic, but the mushroom in particular, the mushroom is your friend, and it's there for you. You just have to ground yourself and make sure that you are, aware of your surroundings and just ground yourself to the earth. Stay connected with yourself.
Right. I
Stay
agree.
in the eye of the storm.
The eye of the storm. One of the things that I also forgot to mention that I took when I mixed those three, which also was probably a mistake, was orange juice. Which.
Oh, no, that was actually a good idea for you.
It was? Yeah. Oh, because I heard it intensifies it. Is that not true?
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah,
I mean, it helps the serotonin. So.
Yeah, why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. In fact, it's probably a logical fallacy that I've never even cared to look up, but I should. And the orange juice that we take anyway is crap orange juice. I mean, unless you're juicing it yourself. So you're just pretty much taking orange flavoring. So I don't know. I don't believe it.
Maybe it's a myth. I have to do the
research. I think it is actually true. I don't want to speak on it. I don't know much information about that, and I don't want to put myself into a logical fallacy situation here. So.
All right. Probably a good idea. Anyway, it was great having you on.
It was great talking to you. I miss you.
I miss you too.
Are we going to be at Pork Fest again next year?
Yeah, I'm going to try to go. And
everybody needs to go to Pork Fest. Everyone needs to go to Pork Fest. It will be the best time of your life. 1,900 people come and camp out and live free. It's awesome. It's the best time ever. And
Jackalope.
Sure.
You should go to Jackalope also, Macey. It's in Arizona.
Way to blow your cover.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Hey, yeah, come after me, feds.
They'll come after me before they come after you.
I hope so. No, I like you. I just don't want them to come after me. So, yeah. So,
let people know.
Yes. Anyway, it's great talking to you, as always. We'll hang out again at Pork Fest next year. And, if you want to come on again, love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want Adam to come on your show too, so I'll be scheduling an interview with that. So.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Daniel, you have a good rest of your night. It was awesome talking to you.
You too. Bye.